Ryan's office revenge.
25 people signed a petition to get me fired. They had no idea I'd just uncovered $12 million in fraud that could have destroyed the entire company. My name is Marcus Hoffman. I'm 51 years old, and 3 months earlier, CEO Roderick Caldwell hired me to fix a problem that was quietly bleeding his company dry: operational inefficiency. Pinnacle Solutions Group was burning through cash like a house on fire, and nobody could figure out why their costs kept climbing while productivity stayed flat. The first sign that something was seriously wrong wasn't the petition itself, it was the silence. 25 managers in the operations division suddenly stopped talking when I walked past their desks. Conversations ended mid-sentence. Computer screens switched to spreadsheets. Someone closed a laptop a little too quickly. In most offices, silence just means people are working. In corporate operations, silence usually means something's already happening behind your back. I'd spent 20 years in Army logistics before moving into corporate operations 12 years ago. In the military, we had a saying: amateurs talk strategy, professionals talk logistics. When supplies don't move efficiently, people die. In business, when operations don't run efficiently, companies die. Same principle, different consequences. Roderick had brought me in because their operational costs had jumped 40% over 2 years. But nobody could explain where the money was going. Department heads kept pointing fingers at each other. Purchasing blamed inventory. Inventory blamed shipping. Shipping blamed warehousing. Classic circular firing squad. Within my first week, I spotted the problem: purchase orders that didn't match delivery receipts. Vendor invoices with inflated line items. Approved expenses for equipment that never arrived. Someone was running a systematic fraud operation, and they'd gotten comfortable doing it. The deeper I dug, the more I realized this wasn't amateur hour. This was sophisticated. Multiple vendors, rotating approval chains, payments split across different departments to avoid detection. Whoever was running this operation knew the company's financial systems inside and out. That's when I started hearing Vivian Caldwell's name come up in conversations. Vivian was Roderick's wife and held the title of Executive Director of Strategic Partnerships. On paper, she managed vendor relationships and partnership development. In practice, she had approval authority on most major purchasing decisions. She also had access to departmental budgets across multiple divisions. And she really didn't appreciate my efficiency initiatives. The first time I cut one of her strategic partnership budgets, she showed up at my office within an hour. Vivian was elegant, polished, and spoke with the confidence of someone who'd never had her decisions questioned. "Marcus," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk, "I think there's been a misunderstanding about the partnership budget allocations." I pulled up the spreadsheet on my monitor and turned it toward her. "No misunderstanding. These vendor contracts are running 30% over market rate for comparable services. Either we renegotiate or we find new suppliers." Her smile tightened slightly. "Some partnerships provide value beyond the immediate contract terms. Relationship building, strategic positioning, long-term growth potential. Strategic positioning doesn't show up on a balance sheet," I said. "If we can't measure the value, we can't justify the expense." That meeting lasted exactly 12 minutes. Vivian left with the same polite smile she'd arrived with, but something had shifted. From that day forward, I noticed department heads becoming less cooperative. Requests for data took longer to fulfill. Meetings got rescheduled at the last minute. Wesley Pierce, the senior strategy manager, started dropping comments about my military rigidity in departmental meetings. Justin Graves, who ran analytics operations, began circulating reports that highlighted temporary disruptions during my process improvements while conveniently omitting the cost savings we were achieving. I recognized the pattern. In military terms, they were conducting an influence operation. Isolate the target, control the information flow. Build coalition support for the desired outcome, but they made one critical mistake. They underestimated how much evidence I'd already gathered. 3 weeks after that first meeting with Vivian, Roderick boarded a plane for a European expansion tour. Before leaving, he stopped by my office and placed a folder on my desk. "Quarterly review is in 3 weeks, he said. "I want a full assessment of where we stand." At the time, I thought he meant operational metrics. Later, I realized he meant something else entirely. 2 days after Roderick left, the vendor payments I'd been tracking suddenly accelerated. Purchase orders that had been sitting in approval queues for weeks got fast-tracked. Invoices that normally took 30 days to process were getting paid within 48 hours. Someone was rushing to complete transactions while the CEO was out of the country. That's when I called in a favor from an old Army buddy who worked in corporate forensic accounting. We spent the next 48 hours going through purchase orders, vendor contracts, and payment authorizations with military precision. What we found was a thing of beauty. And by beauty, I mean a perfect example of systematic fraud. 12 vendors with inflated contracts, payment schedules that avoided normal approval thresholds, purchase authorizations that bypassed standard verification procedures. And at the center of it all, one signature that appeared on every suspicious transaction. Vivian Caldwell. The total damage was just over $12 million across 18 months. Money that had been systematically siphoned out of operational budgets and funneled to vendors who were either overcharging by massive margins or billing for services never delivered. But the really impressive part was how it had been hidden. Each transaction was just small enough to avoid triggering audit flags. Spread across multiple departments to avoid pattern recognition. Approved through a rotation of managers who probably never realized they were part of a larger scheme. The sophistication told me this wasn't someone's side hustle. This was professional-grade embezzlement with insider knowledge of our financial controls. Someone who understood exactly how our approval processes worked and where the blind spots were. My forensic accountant buddy whistled low when he saw the final numbers. Marcus, this is federal fraud territory. You're looking at criminal charges, not just termination. That's the plan, I said. The next morning, I watched Vivian arrive at the office like I was conducting surveillance. Same routine as always. Designer coffee from the lobby cafe. Stop at her assistant's desk for the daily briefing. Walk through the executive corridor greeting people by name. She had no idea I'd spent the weekend documenting her signature on $2 million worth of fraudulent purchase orders. For the next 2 days, I continued my regular work while quietly building my case. Efficiency reports to justify my salary, process improvement recommendations to show value, normal operational tasks that kept everyone focused on my day job instead of my night work. But I also started noticing things. Hushed conversations that stopped when I approached. Department meetings that suddenly didn't need my input. Email chains I got mysteriously dropped from. The influence operation was accelerating. Wednesday morning arrived with the kind of gray October weather that made everyone's coffee taste more important than usual. I was reviewing vendor contracts when my assistant knocked on my office door, Mr. Hoffman. There's a departmental meeting in conference room B. They're asking for you. I looked at my calendar. Nothing scheduled. Who called the meeting? Mr. Pierce, I think. Something about operational assessment. Wesley Pierce. The same guy who'd been spreading rumors about my military rigidity for the past month. This was either perfect timing or perfectly planned. I grabbed my notebook and walked down the hall to conference room B. The moment I opened the door, I knew exactly what was happening. 25 people were already seated around the conference table in overflow chairs. Every department head from operations, analytics, and strategy. People I worked with daily. People I'd helped streamline their processes and reduce their workloads. All of them looking at me like I was walking into my own court-martial. Wesley stood at the front of the room with his tablet connected to the projection screen. Marcus, glad you could make it. We wanted to discuss some concerns about operational direction. I took the empty chair at the head of the table. Every eye in the room was on me. The energy felt like a military briefing where everyone knew the mission was going sideways except the guy giving orders. What kind of concerns? I asked. Justin Graves spoke up from the side of the room. Performance disruptions. Process changes that haven't delivered promised results. Questions about whether current leadership direction aligns with departmental needs. For the next hour, I sat through the most professionally executed character assassination I'd ever witnessed. Charts showing temporary productivity dips during system transitions. Graphs highlighting short-term costs without showing long-term savings. Carefully edited testimonials about my disruptive management approach. Wesley presented data that painted my efficiency initiatives as departmental failures. Numbers that were technically accurate but stripped of all context. It was like reviewing a surgeon's mortality statistics without mentioning he only operated on terminal patients. Justin followed with operational reports that highlighted every temporary setback while ignoring every permanent improvement. Metrics that showed the trees while hiding the forest, but the really professional touch was how they structured the presentation. No direct accusations. No personal attacks, just objective data analysis that happened to support one very specific conclusion. Marcus Hoffman was bad for the operations division. Then the door opened and Vivian walked in. She moved to the center of the room like she owned it, which technically she did through marriage. Every conversation stopped. Every eye shifted to her. Without saying a word, she placed a single sheet of paper on the table directly in front of me. I didn't need to read it to know what it was. The header said it all: Petition for Leadership Review, Operations Division. Below that were 25 signatures. Real names. Real titles. People I'd worked with every day for 3 months. 25 people in this division believed the department would function better under different leadership. Vivian said with the calm confidence of someone delivering inevitable news. Given the operational challenges and performance concerns, the executive team feels this feedback deserves serious consideration. She paused, letting that sink in. We're recommending immediate resignation to allow for smoother transition planning. The room was completely silent, 25 professionals avoiding eye contact. Vivian standing there like a prosecutor who just delivered closing arguments. I picked up the petition and read through every signature. Names I recognized. People whose processes I'd streamlined, managers whose departments were running more efficiently than they had in years. All of them scared enough of change to sign a document requesting my removal. I folded the paper once and slipped it into my jacket pocket. Then I stood up. "Anything else?" I asked. Vivian's eyebrows raised slightly. She'd clearly expected more reaction, more defending, more pleading. "The executive team will need a response by Friday," she said. "You'll have one." I walked out of that conference room knowing exactly what was going to happen next. Not because I could predict the future, but because I understood the tactical situation. They just committed all their forces to a frontal assault. Classic military mistake. Never reveal your full strength until you know what the enemy is holding in reserve, and they had no idea what I was holding in reserve. Thursday morning, Roderick's flight landed at 7:15 a.m. His assistant had already scheduled an emergency board session for Friday morning. Urgent operational review was the only explanation on the calendar. I spent Thursday evening preparing my response to their petition, not the resignation letter they expected. Something much more comprehensive. Friday morning arrived with clear skies and the kind of crisp air that made you think about new beginnings. I was at my desk by 6 a.m. organizing my presentation materials, not because I was nervous, because in military operations, preparation prevents poor performance. The boardroom at Pinnacle Solutions Group occupied the entire northeast corner of the executive floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, and the mahogany conference table could seat 20 people without crowding. By 9 a.m., 12 board members, the CEO, CFO, and myself were seated around that table. Roderick looked tired from his European trip, but completely alert. His eyes had the focused intensity of someone who'd received some very interesting phone calls during his flight home. "Let's begin," he said simply. I connected my laptop to the projection system and advanced to my first slide. Large white numbers against a black background, $12,347,000. The room went completely quiet. "That's how much money was stolen from this company over the last 18 months, I said. Anthony Reed, our CFO, leaned forward in his chair. Several board members reached for the printed reports I'd distributed. Chairman Gordon Walsh studied the cover page with the kind of attention usually reserved for legal documents. The fraud was systematic, I continued, advancing to the next slide. 12 vendors, inflated contracts. Payment authorizations that bypassed standard verification procedures. The flowchart displayed vendor names, contract amounts, and approval signatures. Clean, simple, and impossible to misinterpret. Each arrow showed money flowing out of legitimate operational budgets into fraudulent vendor payments. Each transaction was designed to stay below individual audit thresholds, I explained. But collectively, they represent the largest embezzlement scheme in company history. Board members started cross-referencing the printed documentation. Purchase orders, vendor contracts, payment authorizations, everything organized with the same precision I'd used to track supply chains in Afghanistan. Gordon Walsh looked up from his folder. "Do you know who authorized these payments?" That's when I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the petition. The paper seemed louder than it should have been as it hit the polished table surface. Before I answer that question, I said I'd like the board to see something else. Roderick picked up the petition. His expression didn't change as he read the header, but I watched his posture shift slightly as his eyes moved down the page. 25 signatures, a formal request for my immediate resignation. He placed the document back on the table and looked around the room. Who organized this? The silence stretched for several seconds. Board members glanced at each other. Anthony Reed was already reaching for his phone, probably calling our audit firm. The same person, I said, advancing to my final slide, who authorized $4.2 million in fraudulent vendor payments. The projection screen displayed 2 signature samples side by side. On the left, vendor authorizations from the past 18 months. On the right, the petition requesting my resignation. Below both samples, enlarged for clarity, was Vivian Caldwell's signature on a $340,000 payment to Sterling Strategic Consulting for services that were never delivered. Vivian Caldwell, I said clearly. The room erupted into quiet chaos. Board members passed documents back and forth. Anthony Reed was speaking in urgent whispers to someone on his phone. Gordon Walsh was making notes on his legal pad with the focused intensity of someone preparing for congressional testimony. Roderick stared at the petition for a long moment, then looked directly at me. "How long have you known about this?" "I've been documenting suspicious transactions since my second week." Confirmed fraud patterns 3 weeks ago, built the complete case over the past 4 days, and you said nothing until now. I needed sufficient evidence to ensure successful prosecution. In military operations, you don't engage the target until you have overwhelming tactical advantage. One of the board members spoke up. What's the exposure risk? Criminal liability for the perpetrators, civil recovery possible for most stolen funds. But if we'd waited much longer, the trail would have been harder to follow. They were accelerating payment schedules while Mr. Caldwell was traveling. Anthony Reed finished his phone call and looked around the table. Our forensic accounting firm can be here within 2 hours. FBI Financial Crimes Unit will want copies of everything. That's when the door opened and Vivian walked in. She moved with her usual confident stride, clearly expecting to discuss my resignation response. The moment she saw the projection screen, her expression changed. Her own signature, blown up to billboard size, authorizing a fraudulent vendor payment. Roderick, she said carefully, I wasn't expecting a board meeting this morning. He gestured toward the empty chair at the far end of the table. Sit down, Vivian. We have some questions. For the next 30 minutes, I watched a masterclass in corporate interrogation. Board members with legal backgrounds asking precise questions about vendor relationships, approval authorities, and payment procedures. Vivian's answers becoming more careful and less confident with each exchange. The evidence was overwhelming. Her signature on dozens of suspicious payments. Her approval authority on vendor contracts with inflated pricing, her access to departmental budgets across multiple divisions. Most damaging of all, her organization of the petition to remove the one person investigating the fraud scheme. Gordon Walsh finally closed his folder and looked around the table. The board needs to address this immediately. What followed was swift and decisive. Vivian's corporate access was terminated while she sat at the conference table. Security was called to escort her from the building. Her personal effects would be packaged and delivered later. Wesley Pierce and Justin Graves received similar treatment. The 3 managers who'd been actively involved in approving fraudulent payments were suspended pending criminal investigation. The 22 other petition signers kept their jobs but found themselves answering very detailed questions about their knowledge of vendor relationships and approval procedures. Most of them, it turned out, had simply been scared employees who thought my efficiency initiatives threatened their positions. They'd signed the petition believing they were protecting their jobs, not covering up embezzlement. But fear doesn't excuse participating in an attempt to remove someone investigating criminal activity. The district attorney's office was extremely interested in our documentation. Systematic corporate fraud with clear evidence trails makes prosecutors very happy, especially when the evidence is organized with military precision and supported by forensic accounting analysis. 6 months later, I was sitting in a completely different office, Executive Vice President of Operations, Pinnacle Solutions Group. Corner office with windows overlooking the city, the same view I'd stared at during that board meeting, but from a much better chair. The quarterly review had just finished. Operational costs down 32% from pre-investigation levels, vendor contracts renegotiated to market rates, new approval procedures designed to prevent future fraud, purchase authorization systems that required multiple departmental sign-offs for any transaction over $5,000. Most importantly, a corporate culture where questioning suspicious activity was encouraged, not punished. Roderick knocked on my doorframe and walked in without waiting for permission. CEO privilege. Federal sentencing is next week, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Vivian had pled guilty to federal fraud charges. Wesley and Justin had taken plea deals in exchange for testimony. The 3 managers who'd actively participated in approving fraudulent payments were facing prison time. Any regrets? Roderick asked. I thought about that question for a moment. Did I regret exposing a $12 million fraud scheme? Did I regret protecting the company from criminal liability? Did I regret ensuring that 200 honest employees kept their jobs while a few criminals faced consequences? About which part? The whole thing, the investigation, the confrontation, the way it ended. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. Same city skyline, same traffic patterns, same world. But with a little more justice in it. 25 people signed a petition requesting my resignation, I said. 22 of them were just scared employees who thought I was threatening their job security. They signed that document believing they were protecting their livelihoods. Roderick nodded. 3 of them were covering up criminal activity. They signed that document hoping to eliminate the person investigating their fraud scheme. And now the 22 scared employees are still here. They're working in departments that run more efficiently than they have in years. Their jobs are more secure now than before I arrived, because the company isn't bleeding money through fraudulent vendor payments. And the other 3, they're facing federal prison sentences, which is exactly where people who steal from their employers belong. Roderick stood to leave, then paused at the door. The board wants to expand your authority. complete oversight of vendor relationships across all divisions, full audit power over any operational expenditure. After he left, I walked down to the operations floor. Same layout as 6 months ago, but different energy. People working efficiently. Processes running smoothly. No whispered conversations that stopped when management walked by. The conference room where that petition meeting had occurred was now used for weekly efficiency reviews. Same table, same chairs, different purpose. Instead of organizing character assassinations, my team used it to identify process improvements and cost savings opportunities. Last month, one of the managers who'd originally signed the petition approached me with concerns about a new vendor contract. Instead of ignoring suspicious activity or organizing political resistance, he'd brought the issue directly to my attention. That's the difference between a workplace culture based on fear and one based on integrity. The vendor contract turned out to be legitimate, but I thanked him for raising the concern. In healthy organizations, people should feel safe questioning anything that doesn't look right. Every few weeks, someone asks me if I ever think about Vivian, if I wonder how things might have gone differently, if I feel responsible for destroying her marriage and sending her to prison. Here's what I learned in 20 years of military service. Corruption is like cancer. You can't negotiate with it. You can't manage around it. You can't hope it will resolve itself. The only solution is to identify it quickly and remove it completely, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. Vivian Caldwell wasn't sent to prison because I investigated her activities. She was sent to prison because she stole $4 and $2 million from her husband's company over 18 months. The investigation just documented what she'd already done. The 25 people who signed that petition thought they were choosing between job security and supporting an unpopular manager. They didn't realize they were actually choosing between protecting honest work and covering up criminal activity. Most of them chose correctly once they understood what was really happening. The company avoided criminal charges by cooperating fully with federal investigators. Our stock price recovered within 6 months. Employee morale improved dramatically once people realized that competence and integrity were valued more than political maneuvering. Sometimes the system corrects itself automatically, but usually it needs someone willing to ask hard questions and follow the evidence wherever it leads, even when it leads to uncomfortable places, even when it leads to powerful people, even when it leads to the CEO's wife. Here's what I want you to understand. Every workplace has people who care more about protecting their position than protecting the organization. They'll organize petitions, they'll spread rumors, they'll try to eliminate anyone who threatens their comfortable arrangement. But every workplace also has people who understand that integrity matters more than convenience, who believe that doing the right thing is worth the risk of making enemies, who know that sometimes you have to stand up to corruption regardless of who's involved. The question isn't whether you'll encounter workplace politics and corporate manipulation. You will. The question is what you'll do when it happens. Will you go along to get along? Will you stay quiet to protect your own position? Or will you have the courage to ask the questions that need asking and follow the evidence wherever it leads? 25 people signed a petition to get me fired. They thought they were protecting themselves from change. They had no idea they were protecting $12 million in systematic fraud from someone who knew how to follow a money trail. In the end, the truth won, but it didn't win by accident. It won because someone was willing to fight for it.